Hi, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
My brain is broken. I'm under a lot of stress right now. How are you doing, Mary Lou?
I'm pretty good given, just the state of the world and our censorship event last week for talking about nanobots. We didn't get censored for saying gay and retarded or having your shirt. We're just talking hypothetically about nanobots. We got a memory hold. We got disappeared.
Yeah, I hope we didn't just get canceled for saying that word out loud.
No!
Well, I don't know if it's, I'm thinking what triggered them. Okay, first of all, hi, everyone. This
Hi,
is Where
everyone.
Are All the Women? I'm Meghan Murphy. This is Mary Lou Singleton. Where are all the women? This is like this. My brain, I'm gonna have like an aneurysm because it's so literal. Like that we have a stream called "Where Are All the Women?" and it's like, where are they? Removed from YouTube, banned from every venue in Canada. Where? Why? Where are all the women?
Covered in tarps and confined to their homes and not allowed to sing in Afghanistan. Like, where are they?
I know. Why are they not speaking out?
Exactly.
Oh my God. And people on the internet keep telling me to stop complaining because it's not real censorship because the government's not doing it to me. Like, well, the government is doing it to, like, it is, but that's such a bad argument. I remember that being the thing that you would say back when there was like the feminist blogosphere was like a big thing. And there was all sorts of like debates around how you should moderate comment sections and whether or not you should moderate at all, or whether or not you should even have one, or whether or not it was acceptable to censor people or ban people. And the argument from all the feminists, of course, was like mostly the liberal feminist people, but it was like, well, it's not censorship unless the government is doing it too. And we're like, okay. I was still, sorting out my brain around censorship and what is and is not and whatever. And of course, I don't think that it is censorship just because you'd like ban somebody from commenting on your blog. It's like, okay, whatever, who cares? But like, it's this argument that like, just because you're getting shut down and deplatformed, and this very small group of very loud, dishonest activists are going around to every single venue in Canada to ensure that you can't speak there, it doesn't mean you're being censored because you can still speak. You just can't speak in a building to the public or online anywhere in Canada.
Right.
Stop complaining.
Yeah. What's your problem? Yeah, and then that makes sense to people. That or my other favorite one for driving us crazy is there's free speech, but there are consequences for free speech. So you can say what you want, but if that means the government or YouTube takes you down, or you're targeted, or you lose your job, or you get hate threats and death threats, that's okay. That part's okay. So
it's not censorship.
It's not censorship, and it's
the government's not censoring you,
right?
Okay, someone in the comment section just said, I don't even want to say this word out loud anymore, although maybe it's too late now. The reason that our stream got pulled last week because of this nano whatever is because it's a conspiracy theory, and if you mention them on your stream, you will immediately get nuked. So hopefully this stream isn't nuked already. And if it's not, I just want to say very clearly that everything that is attached to the word nano, I think, is a conspiracy theorist, and anybody who mentions them is a crazy person and should be banned from the internet.
Yeah, remember the iPod? The iPod Nano?
Did you hear me, YouTube?
Yeah, we need a code word, like, I don't know, nano monkeys or something that we can talk about. It's not a conspiracy. As I mentioned last week, where I live, I live in a town that is home to the U.S. National Nuclear Weapons Labs, which I think is interesting to begin with. And they have a whole department of tiny monkey weaponry. Super tiny. Like that's real. Like scientists are being paid to research and develop tiny monkey weapons. And this is happening. There's a whole department of it. And then because I looked it up after our talk last night. Cancer research, there's all this cancer research, and actually it's starting to be tested on actual humans on teeny tiny self-organizing monkeys that they inject into people to.
I don't think we should be talking about this right now. I think that I'm just worried my channel's going to get deleted or something.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I don't know where you're going to go.
If our stream gets removed, I'll put it up on. Yeah, Taylor Swift is safe. If this stream gets removed again, I'll put it up on Substack, which is where I put up last week's stream. If anybody missed it and wants to watch our conversation about Taylor Swift, it's on www.meganmurphy.ca.
Okay.
Please don't pull my channel. That's okay. I mean, how would you even know? Like, it doesn't make sense that you wouldn't be able to talk about like even silly things. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I don't know. Anyway, that's the thing though, right? Is they don't tell you the rules.
Mm-hmm.
They don't tell you the rules. They ding you, or they or they demonetize you, or they take the video down, or you just get removed, and they never tell you what you did. You just say, you broke the rules. And in the email that they sent me last week, it was like, it might have had something to do with this, and they gave me a timestamp. So that's how I knew that it had to do with this thing. But it didn't say it said medical misinformation. But yeah, it doesn't say don't talk about this or you're going to get banned from YouTube or wherever it is, Instagram, Facebook, old Twitter, same thing, right?
Right.
It's so frustrating. I almost can't even, like, it's giving me anxiety in my stomach just talking about it, because it's like,
right,
because it's happened to me so many times, and it's like, I think I have trauma. I'm not going to say I have like PTSD or whatever around it, because I'm so, like, on one hand, I'm like, okay, whatever, fuck all of it. I have no control over it. They have control over everything. So I'm not even going to bother trying to fit into whatever the next algorithmic rule is. People are always telling me how, oh, if you do this, you can get into the algorithm on Instagram, and this is how you get into the algorithm on YouTube, and this is what your thing has to look like, and this is what you can't say and what you can't say. And it's like, I don't want to fucking do this. I hate them, and it doesn't make any difference, because if I did manage to succeed in getting into the algorithm, which I don't, I know that some people are like, I've been shadow banned, and it's like, no, you're just boring. Like, right. So that is a thing, and I don't think that I have like such spectacular video content that it should be at 1 million subscribers or whatever. But I also know, because I can see where my content used to go on Instagram and Facebook, on YouTube, and that it no longer goes anywhere, and I can't crack a new subscriber to save my life in 2 years. And that just doesn't make sense to me, considering the growth that was up from here to here and then just stops forever for like 2 years. Like, I'm like, okay, I don't think I got that much worse than I was 2 years ago in terms of boringness. Right. So, and they can just take me off whenever they feel like it. So it's like, am I going to expend a ton of energy trying to build this huge following and platform on these platforms that just in a minute I could do something they don't like and then I'm gone, which has obviously happened to me before.
I know exactly. For years. You were kicked off Twitter for over 2 years, right?
4 years.
4 years. 4 years.
No, it doesn't seem like it was that long, but it was 4 very hard years for me,
right?
Not being able to talk about my opinions about Taylor Swift and tacos.
Have you considered toning down your rhetoric?
No. I think I've been toning down my rhetoric, to be honest. I'm like, because I think,
but you're censoring me about the little monkeys.
Sorry. Well, I don't literally want to get banned from YouTube, but
no, I know. Stop. I'll stop.
kind of, I can't figure out. I think you're not supposed to swear on Twitter. I think Twitter doesn't like that, but I don't really know for
Mm,
sure. But I've started swearing a lot on Twitter just because it feels so natural to me, and I just am trying to be as authentic as possible. I love swearing, so
mhm.
I don't know. I think when I swear in my tweets, they don't go very far. But I'm just like, but I can't not because I feel very strongly about these things, and they're just words. I mean, I don't know. They're just words. I don't like this, like, oh, I don't, like every once in a while people will be like, maybe if you changed your tone or you didn't use swear words or you didn't use this triggering word, then people would like you more and you wouldn't be censored so much and that you wouldn't be like being canceled by whoever it is, YouTube, the gender critical lefty feminist crowd, the leftists, the government. And I'm just like, fuck you. It's not my fucking personality. People like are just doing it. Like, I have a good personality. I'm sorry, I do. Like, people who meet me in person, I know, well, because, people, I wouldn't be working with the amount of people that I wouldn't be able to put on these events with people if people genuinely didn't like my personality. It's not my
Right.
personality. This is about ideology and politics and not falling in line and being punished for that. That's what it is. So it's not going to change if I stop swearing so much or referring to the lefty GC feminists who are like, you have to vote Labor or NDP or Democrat, otherwise you hate women and we won't touch you and we're going to write a letter against you. If you call those people flat-brained, then you're being mean and no wonder they won't work with you. I'm like, I did not start this shit. I did not
Yeah,
start this
exactly.
shit. I've always worked with everybody. They started this shit because I wouldn't, disavow Posey or, whatever it is, because I like free speech.
Mhm. Do you like free speech or do you like Nazis?
Not Nazis, of course. Of course, this is about my wanting to be friends with Nazis. I don't know any, but I hope that they'll contact me and we can have a drink and they'll write me a check or something. Do you know? I've never met a Nazi before. Have you?
No, I mean, I come from a colorful family and I have a cousin who has a swastika tattoo that I really talk to him. He's had a lot of problems. He had a really hard life. He has addiction issues and stuff. I don't know why he has that tattoo. He had it exposed in my house where I live with my Jewish husband. That was rough, but no, I don't know if he's actually a Nazi or if he's just like a working class guy who for some reason got a swastika tattoo, but he's not part of any organized Nazi movement. That's the closest I've come to a Nazi. My cousin. Yeah.
I
But he had a really
mean,
rough life. I mean, I don't feel like he's actually a threat to my Jewish husband or other people.
most of them probably, most people probably aren't a threat to anybody based on just having prejudiced or bad thoughts. I think the big danger, this is the thing that the left, the progressives, whatever, I don't know how to, I keep telling people not to categorize other people and then I do it. So I'm trying not to, but I don't
Yeah.
know how to refer to the people who think that everybody who disagrees with them are far right, the people who are pro
Yeah.
censorship and anti free speech, and the people who think, for example, that, Trump is the worst thing to happen to America, or,
Mhm.
that the conservatives in Canada are going to ban abortion and that Pierre Poilievre is dangerous. I don't know how to refer to those people because I think they would refer to themselves as progressives or leftists.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's okay. I don't refer to myself as far right. I don't
Mhm.
even know what that means, but I don't feel that I don't identify with that label, and it's misrepresentative. Like, it's not
Yeah.
honest. So whatever. Anyway, I'm going to make the point that I was trying to make, which I may have just forgotten what I was going to say. What was I talking about? Like, I think that they talk about individuals on the internet, individuals like me, the women speaking at my events, individuals
Mhm.
like you. This is who they're treating as dangerous. Tommy
Mhm.
Robinson, this dangerous individual. They're, dangerous because they're racist or they're transphobic or they hold right-wing views, or, you know, whatever extremist word they can use to describe these people to ensure nobody ever listens to them and actually looks into what they say or think, but just disavows them. That's what they treat as a danger, but they don't see the government as a danger. So they don't
No.
see government censorship as a danger, and the government
Right.
is in charge of your life. The
Yeah.
government is the one that's going to decide if you can move freely, if you can speak freely, if you have constitutional rights, if you have bodily autonomy. They're going to be, you know, like, why is it that I'm this big danger, but it's totally fine for the government to, you know, we're guilty of spreading misinformation, right? On YouTube, on social media, whatever it is. Or, you know, Naomi Wolf is guilty of spreading misinformation
Right.
on Twitter. But when the government literally spreads disinformation, so lies to us about health and medication, as we saw in the past 3 years, that's fine. Like, why is that? Why is it okay for the government to lie and to censor and to literally take people's rights away? And, you know, but it's not okay for us to have different ideas than you. That makes us this extreme far right danger. This doesn't make any sense.
No. Well, their status, you know, they believe in, many of these people are avowed socialists. Like, they do want a strong government state that is controlling our lives, and they're upfront about that, which it's very far from where I am right now. But at the same time, they acknowledge that the government is institutionally racist. They'll acknowledge that, they'll acknowledge the Tuskegee experiment. They'll acknowledge, like, the illegal wars. They'll acknowledge the grift and corruption. They'll acknowledge that very, very recently, the government was forcibly sterilizing imprisoned women and Native American women, very recently. But at the same time, they trust and love the government, but their version of it. It's cognitive dissonance. It's, very dangerous cognitive dissonance that they're experiencing.
Yeah, I mean, I just wish that they would figure out what they're doing, because what they're doing is super dangerous. I mean, they're supporting authoritarianism by the government and censoring the people. You know, we the people, we're democracy. The government isn't democracy. People keep talking about, like, you need to vote Democrat to save democracy, or, you know, you need to vote Trump to save democracy, or you need to vote blah in Canada, liberal. Then nobody says liberal, but people will say NDP. Or you can't vote conservative if you care about democracy and women's rights. And it's like, it's not, like, you shouldn't actually be leaving it up to the government who determine whether or not you get democracy. I mean, we have to vote against governments that are openly against democracy. But, you know, democracy is ruled by the people, and we need to remember that we are empowered in a democracy, and we get to decide who the government is, and we get to decide, you know, if they start threatening our rights, threatening democracy, taking away our free speech and bodily autonomy, they're not allowed to do that in the democracy, and they get punished by us voting them out. And yet, of course, all these progressives are refusing to do so because they just can't bring themselves to vote for the Conservative Party, because since they've been a kid, they've treated that word as a bad word, and they just can't, you know, it's religious also, you know. Oh, I lost.
Where'd I go? Looks like your camera was unplugged. Plug it back in. Oh, it's the whole, okay, just a second. Let me see. Click the
It was
camera
funny.
button.
It's like,
Like, I didn't do anything to it.
Uh-oh. This is more of the, what did you say? The eclipse. The eclipse is messing with us. Just before this stream, so yesterday, everyone.
Press the camera button to turn it back on when you're ready.
What if you leave and come back? Or if you go into settings and you go into camera, what does it say under camera there for you? Anyway, yesterday, guys, I couldn't even get onto StreamYard. I had an interview scheduled at 1 p.m. and I couldn't load StreamYard, and I had no idea why. And they emailed me back today and told me there was high traffic. And I was like, okay. I mean, I had to cancel an interview. What if I was streaming live? So that happened. Then my laptop cord broke and I couldn't find another laptop cord. And I did finally find one, and then it wouldn't connect to my laptop. This was happening at 6 p.m., like right as we were supposed to start streaming live. Also, Adelita today was outside and rubbed her entire body in somebody's poo outside.
We don't know whose.
It smelled kind of like horse
No idea.
manure, so I think it must have been like deer. I find that doggies, in my experience with little doggies who like to rub themselves on stinky things, it's usually like it's never dog poo. It's like some wild animal that they were like, this is so good.
Yeah. Well, where I live, there's a lot of human poo on the streets, so I'm really glad it wasn't that.
No, this is over. This was in my sister's yard, and there's lots and lots of bunnies in the yard, and there's lots of deer in the yard. So
when you know, she thinks it smells so good, and you almost feel sad taking it
I
away.
knew she was doing something bad. I watched her and I was like, no, you're doing something gross. I know you're doing something gross. Sometimes when she's doing that, though, it's just that she found a dead bug. Like she likes to rub herself on dead things. And so sometimes she'll kill a bug like with her paw, and then she'll like rub her neck on the little bug. In this case, it was poo. And I had to give her 2 baths. Anyway, the eclipse
big
is
day
messing
for
with
all
us.
of you. Yeah. Once my dog found a Kentucky Fried Chicken bucket that still had all the bones and grease in it, and she rolled. I looked out my window and she was just like rolling inside of that. She had her head inside of it, and she was small, so she had her whole torso. And by the time I got her, like it took weeks to get the chicken grease out of that dog. It was the most disgusting thing. So it brings them joy though.
Charlie Stevenson in the comments said it masks their scent from their prey, which I think is so cute, because Adelita would think that. Like she's always growling at things and she thinks she's like the guard dog of the house. So I think, and she likes to, stalk bugs and spiders, and she loves to chase cockroaches in Mexico, like really big cockroaches. Yeah. So I think she would think, I'm going to mask my scent from my prey, and then I'm going to go out hunting.
Absolutely.
Okay. Meghan,
so how'd your
all the dog stories? Yeah, dog stories are much more calming than
what I'm about to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to hear about your event and the backlash and how all that's going.
Okay. So we had an event on Saturday in Victoria. We, as I have written about and discussed many times, we initially booked the Ambrosia Banquet Hall, which is where we held our event in May, which went very well. The hall was aware of who our group was and what the event was about. We sent them the poster. They were well informed. They were well informed that there would be backlash, that this was controversial, that they would get protesters, so on and so forth. After the first event, everyone was happy. They were like, please book with us again. We loved having you. This was great. We'll give you a discount like on the deposit. We're like, awesome. We have this great venue. They're on board. They kept promising us they would never cancel us. And then they got harassed. And the activists, I mean, people really don't know what they're up against here. And they get really freaked out when they actually have to deal with these activists, because they are insane.
Yeah, they are.
They're very intense, and they're very scary, and they have no ethics, and they lie, and they scare people. And they're relentless. They do not stop. I don't think many of them have day jobs or friends or social lives. So they went after the Ambrosia, and at first the Ambrosia was like, don't worry, we're not going to cancel you. And then it just got to be too much, and they canceled us and issued this groveling, gross apology that was like, we support inclusion and love is love, and we've canceled these horrible ladies. We didn't know they were so hateful. Just tried to save their own asses, right?
Yeah.
So we were pissed, and then we had to find another venue, which is not easy in Canada. Whether it's usually, sometimes it's like, we're not on board with your message, but usually it's just that people don't want the bad press. And why would you? If you're a business,
Totally.
why would you want to deal with trans activists calling you, hateful, or saying that you're responsible for hosting hate speech and, being vandalized constantly and terrorized?
breaking your windows, spray painting your windows. Yeah, they're deranged. They're really dangerous people.
Yeah. So, I get it, but also, somebody has to take a stand. And I mean, the other thing is that if you don't cave to them, then they do kind of leave you alone eventually. It's when they realize that they can get to you that they'll keep bullying you.
Right.
But so anyway, so we booked with the Legion in Victoria, branch 292, which is the Trafalgar Pro Patria branch. And they didn't ask us what the event was about, but we emailed from our Vancouver Island Speaks email, and so it's easy to Google if you want. I have no idea if they Googled or didn't. Every event that we've done, this is our 5th event, I believe, on Vancouver Island that we've put on, and every single event is up on YouTube. I put all of the recordings, usually of the entire thing, including the Q&A on YouTube. It's usually live streamed. So anybody who wants to, and I post my speeches verbatim. I post the transcripts of my talks verbatim on my Substack page. So anybody who wants to see what happens at the events or what's said at the events can very easily figure that out, and they never do. But also, like, at first glance, I don't think that we do seem threatening or dangerous or hateful, because we're not. We're a bunch of women trying to have conversations about women's rights and about kids' safety and about free speech. It's not a controversial thing, or it shouldn't. I know that it is controversial, but it shouldn't, and nothing that we say should be controversial. I talk about free speech a lot. I talk about democracy a lot. And I talk about women. This time I talked about women's rights and the history of the women's movement. It's also irrational. It's hard to get my head around, and it's hard for me to even talk about in a way that makes sense, because it just doesn't make sense. It's totally crazy making, and nobody is operating rationally. Nobody says, hey, why are they saying these things about you? Like, what's your side of the story? We did the event at the Legion, and there were people there, and the bartender was there. Nobody had a problem with anything that happened at the Legion. The event went really well. It was a really good event. We all had a nice time. The space was great. The Legion was great. They were very helpful. But afterwards, and there are not even that many people. These are Vancouver Island trans activists. There aren't that many of them, but they went on this campaign to have us canceled. And they put this all out on the internet openly, which I think is interesting. They're very proud to be publicly lying about us and to be publicly lying to the Legion or whatever venue it is. So, there had been one person named Lynn Robinson Young. I don't know if that's his real name. I actually don't know if it's a him. It looks like some sort of like fat, pasty him, her, from Victoria, a trans activist. And he posted a template for people to send to the Legion, its members, and its leadership. And so in their email, I wasn't able to do much research on this person, which tells me that maybe this isn't their real name. But and I really there's not very many photos of him online. I had to search really, really hard on Facebook just to find a photo of him at all. And so it's just his face. So it's a chubby face. There's a 5 o'clock shadow. Anyway, I'm gonna stop. I'm just staring at it right now.
So this it's another endocrine deranged person, which this movement is full of people whose endocrine systems are not functioning well at all. So it's one of those people.
Yeah. So anyway, so he posts on Facebook this template, and I'm going to read you this letter that he wrote for people to use to harass the Legion. I'm writing you as a member and or ally of the 2S LGBTQI+ community. I was deeply hurt to hear. I was deeply hurt, you manipulative little shit. I had hurt feelings. I was deeply hurt to hear that on Saturday, September 14th, 2024, the Victoria branch of the Royal Canadian Legion hosted a panel focused on perpetuating hateful anti-transgender rhetoric at an event hosted by Vancouver Island Speaks called Surgeries, Sports and Speech in Canada. This panel represented yet another attack on the rights of our transgender community members, and the Legion's decision to host this event fails to align with your June 3rd, 2019 commitment to not affiliate with groups that promote hatred or violence toward protected groups, including on the basis of gender, or your website's core values, which include being supportive, inclusive, courteous, and fair to all. So, I mean, first, it just starts off with a full lie. The panel was not focused on perpetuating hateful anti-transgender rhetoric, and this was not an attack on the rights of anybody. I, as I mentioned, spoke mostly about free speech and democracy and the history of the women's rights movement, and Maya, we obviously talk about protecting kids from being sterilized and mutilated. Magdalena is a detransitioner, so she talked about her experience of getting sucked into what she calls the trans cult. She got a mastectomy. She talked about this publicly. I'm not revealing anything that she hasn't said publicly before. She had a long history of, I believe, molestation and sexual assault and things like that as a kid and a teenager, which factored into her feelings about her body as a woman. Yeah, I talked a lot about propaganda and government propaganda and the way that activists and I think the left and progressives in general treat top-down propaganda as grassroots activism. And, the actual voices of people who are actually being marginalized in Canada as dangerous propaganda and misinformation. Meanwhile, the government-funded media is spewing propaganda at them, and they're treating this as, the absolute truth. This is, again, that same reversal of, who is the real danger? Is it me, or is it the government that's lying to you and then punishing you if you don't repeat the lies? So it starts off with a big lie, or several big lies in any case, and then goes on to say, the allowance of the Legion for this panel to be hosted at the Legion's Victoria branch betrays the trust of 2S LGBTQI+ people in Victoria and Canada overall. How are we, would trust in what? Trust, are you in a relationship with the Legion? You're going to break up or something? Legion's cheating on you? How are we? betrays our trust. Like, if you don't think the way that we think, we can't trust you, which I guess is fair. Like, if you only can trust fellow cult members and the Legion isn't part of your cult, then maybe you can't trust them.
True.
How are we meant to trust an organization that is willing to post a handle promoting hate speech against our transgender siblings, parents, and children? Transgender people remain a deeply vulnerable population. No, they don't. Even in Canada, transgender people experience more physical and sexual violence and report worse mental health statuses than cisgender people. That's not true, except for the mental health part.
Yeah, the first half is untrue. The second half is true. Right. Yeah.
This is apparently from Statistics Canada 2018. I imagine self-reported. Even the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, so CSIS, warned us in February. See, they're using this against us, which I knew they would. I knew they would. Of course they would. So they reference CSIS, who warned us in February of this year that extremists could inspire and encourage serious violence against the I can't keep saying this over and over again, 2S LGBTQI plus community. I've talked about this a lot. I've written about this a lot. I've talked about it in my talks at these events, how CSIS reported that the anti-gender movement, who I guess would be people like me in Canada, are a serious threat in Canada. And, these LGBTQ plus need millions and millions and millions of dollars in funding and protection. But also, this to me, I was like, oh, they're just ramping up to throw us in jail and criminalize us as being terrorists or something.
Absolutely,
like that,
yeah.
right? Like, they're doing it on purpose. And this is a perfect gift to the trans activists who want to shut us down because, CSIS said it, which is a government agency. So they go on to say, the featured panelists at the hateful event hosted at the Victoria Legion building included Meghan Murphy, a transphobic internet personality. Oh, I meant internet personality. I'm not even a human.
No.
I'm not a writer or a podcaster or a speaker or a journalist. I'm a transphobic internet personality who was banned from X for violating rules prohibiting hate speech against trans people. Another gift to the transes from old Twitter, because this is referenced all the time by trans activists who say she's so hateful, she was even banned from Twitter.
Right.
We're saying that men aren't women, of course, but that's what they use. That's what they get to use. It's all across the media. Meghan Murphy is so hateful that she was banned from Twitter. Can you believe how hateful you would have to be banned from Twitter?
Right.
Okay, I'm going to continue reading the letter. So difficult. Blah, blah, blah. The panel included Meghan Murphy, transphobic internet personality, Mia Hughes, founder of Cosbar, which is not true. Mia Hughes is not the founder of Cosbar. Is she? I thought that maybe she's like a co-founder. I didn't even think she was involved in Cosbar anymore. I don't know. Maybe she is. Cosbar is great. This is nothing against Mia or Cosbar. I just didn't realize she was the founder of Cosbar. So I'm not sure if that's accurate. Anyway, Cosbar, an advocacy group which is focused on one issue: denying trans people rights. That's in quotations.
And by rights, we mean...
Whose quote is this?
The right
That's not what the organization is. The whole organization is about protecting women's sex-based rights. It's in their acronym.
Well, they're denying trans people their right to violate women's boundaries and their right to force us all to say lies and to pretend men are women. So, okay, go on. Jeez.
Where is this? Oh, Linda Blade, who says that trans athletes harm female athletes, which of course she does not say. She does not say that. So their words are Linda Blade, who says that trans athletes, and this part's in quotation, harm female athletes. So we don't know what actually came before harm female athletes.
Well, they do. They have
But that's not trans athletes, it's male athletes competing
male
as
athletes.
women against women. So no,
Right, that's true.
nobody says trans athletes harm anyone. That's not the point.
Right.
But of course they always frame it that way. Brian E. Dixon, who publicly stated transitioning threatens queer youth, specifically gay children, which is true.
That's true.
And that medically prescribed hormone blockers to ease gender dysphoria castrates children.
It does.
Yeah, that's true also. So, okay, that was fair. You guys were fair to Brian E. And Magdalena Houston, who is associated with Murphy. I mean, I know her because she came to our event.
She talks to you. She must be bad.
Well, I don't know her very well. She came to our event at the Cowichan Community Center and spoke during the Q&A about her experience, and so I invited her to be on this panel. So she's associated with me through being on the panel.
That's all they have on her is guilt by association.
She's associated with me. I was like, yeah, she was on my panel. And characterizes transgender people's self-realization as social contagion. I mean, there's plenty of research on that. It is a social contagion, especially
look around, check out your local art school.
Right. Exactly. Okay, so it goes on to say our 2S LGBTQI plus community must assume that by hosting this event, these far-right anti-transgender viewpoints must align with that of the Royal Canadian Legion. Yeah, I'm sure the Royal Canadian Legion only hosts people who agree with all of their, like, what are the Royal Canadian Legion's views and politics anyway? But I'm pretty sure that they're not only allowing people to have events at the Legion who represent whatever their frickin' views are. Like, they're vets. I'm sure lots of people have lots of different views.
Yes.
Anyway, so we assume that these views align with that of the Legion unless otherwise indicated. In fact, one of our Victoria community members called the Victoria branch, this is good, yesterday while the panel was taking place, and had a conversation that seemingly endorses this. So this is a quote from the person who called the Legion. This is their explanation of what happened when they called the Legion on Sunday. The guy on the phone says he was a bartender. I told them that they are hosting a hate group. The guy said, no, we are renting out a room. Whatever they do up there is not our business.
I asked that guy.
I know, he's great. The bartender was great. Yeah. I asked, would you rent out to the Nazis? And he said, sure, if they were paying.
It's free country.
That's awesome. I wish they had just stuck to that line. That's what they should have said to all these activists when they emailed. Who cares? Not our business. In these times where Canada's social progress is threatening to reverse itself, as we allies and members of the 2S LGBTQI plus community, I would like you to stop writing these stupid fucking letters, to look to organizations such as yourself to not only refuse to aid and abet hateful rhetoric against our community, but to actively include us and fight for our right to exist, just as veterans fought for. Veterans did not fight for trannies. They did not. I therefore urge you not only to denounce the September 14th event and its organizers and to formally apologize to the 2SL LGBTQI plus community for hosting a group that promoted hate towards us, but to make and announce a public donation to the Victoria Pride Society. I'm sure they need more money as a gesture of support and goodwill. And then they suggested this be sent to, like, basically all the Legion headquarters and to member services, and that's
in the entire country.
Yeah, so it was sent to, let me see if I can find everywhere that they suggested it be sent to. Oh, it was the headquarters. I guess there's a headquarters that's specifically for BC Yukon and Ontario or something like that.
Mm.
And then, yeah, member services for everybody. A bunch of the branch heads or whatever. And so what happened after that, so I guess a bunch of people sent these letters or letters like it, and, basically described us as Nazis who wanted to exterminate people identifying as trans
Mm.
and freaked them out. And so they contacted poor Lori, who did our booking for us at the Legion, who had no idea what was going on, I don't think, and berated her and freaked her out and ordered her to apologize to these activists. So
Oh
in
no.
one email response to one of the activists named Tessa, she posted this publicly on Facebook as well. She Where did I put this email? There's so many freaking screenshots that I have right now. Tessa Brodsky emailed the Legion and complained, and then posted, "This is the response I received. I am deeply," the subject of her email to the Legion was like, "Please do not host Meghan Murphy." This is from poor Lori. "I am deeply ashamed and distraught over the group that was in attendance on Saturday, September 14th, 2024. I understood this group to be a nonprofit focusing on current women's issues. There is no way that the Legion supports the beliefs of this group." She doesn't know what our beliefs are. None of these people do. "We have been and always will be here to support all military and all those who serve or have served. There are not enough words to convey our deep sadness over this and apologize profusely to those who were hurt by this. Signed, Lori Weston, Branch Manager, Trafalgar Pro Patria Legion."
That's
And
disappointing.
yeah, I mean, like, it's hard. I actually feel badly for this woman.
Mhm.
Because, yeah, I don't think, yeah, she was called and berated by her higher ups, and they told
Wait,
her she had to
yeah.
apologize. So, Bryony, one of our panelists and organizers, called the Legion after this email started circulating. The trans activist took the email, Lori's email, and turned it into a meme and started posting it and saying it was an official statement from the Legion, which it wasn't. It was just an
Mm.
email to one person, a private email that I'm sure they didn't ask if they could share it publicly.
Mhm.
And Bryony called and said, like, "Hey, we're the group that rented on Saturday, and we're just wondering what's going on because we saw this statement circulating. And did you have a problem with our event? And if
Mhm.
so, what was the problem?" And Lori explained to Bryony that, yeah, she was called by the headquarters and all of these Legion headquarters, and they were very angry at the bad press and ordered her
Mm.
to apologize.
It's like a forced confession in the gulag.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
That
um,
is so disappointing. And they never notice how they never actually reference anything you're saying in your speech. They never are willing to have a debate or a discussion. People, their whole goal again is to prevent women from speaking on this issue, not to engage with what we're saying.
it's all a lie.
Mhm.
And for people who claim to care so much about misinformation, they just lie and lie and lie and lie. And I don't know if they know they're lying because I think that they don't even bother to look into whether or not it's true. So probably they could
Mm.
feign in ignorance and be like, "Well, this is what I heard they said." The email that this Tessa person sent to Lori that Lori responded to says, "An event is taking place on your premises tonight that is fraught with controversy. I'm emailing as a Christian church member who is part of a church that caused great harm to many children and their families due to power and fear. I'm also emailing as a parent whose children needed the kind of medical care that tonight's speakers are working very hard to end access to.
My
Like,
kids needed to be castrated.
that's not medical care.
My children needed pediatric mastectomies.
So she, I guess, has a so-called trans kid that she mutilated and sterilized, or at least put on puberty blockers and hormones, and is claiming this is medical care that her children needed.
Right.
This group
she's
that
dug in deep with her beliefs. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the parents are usually, these are mothers, honestly. They're usually mothers of these so-called trans kids are, they are in a position where I think they have to defend transgenderism and defend what they did to their kid, because what they did to their kid is so horrific. And were they to admit that, I think that would be a really hard thing to live with.
Yeah. Remember that study an informal survey that Fourth Wave Now did of the detransitioners who were afraid to tell their parents that they weren't trans, and almost 100% of them who were afraid to tell their parents said they were worried their parents might kill themselves or go into a very deep depression, that they were protecting. I don't know why my camera keeps going off. They were protecting their children's mental health, their parents' mental health, by pretending to still be trans.
I didn't see that, but that's terrible.
And it makes sense, right? If you have made this your identity and you've participated in the destruction of your child's ability to have a satisfying adult sex life, the destruction of your child's fertility, the destruction of your child's endocrine system, how do you go back from that? How do you admit you've been complicit in that and forgive yourself?
I know. You destroyed your kid's life and health.
Exactly.
T in the live chat says, isn't this libel? Like, in terms of those letters and those public statements. And it's very clearly libelous. It's not true, and it's extremely harmful to my reputation, all of our reputations, the reputation of the group, all of the panelists. It is, and I would love to sue them all for libel. So if anybody out there would like to do that for us pro bono, that would be super. Yeah, like they feel completely entitled to saying these things about us, and the implications are huge, not even just for us, but for everyone.
Absolutely.
I found this other post from one of the women who's been organizing against us on Vancouver Island. She's one of the ringleaders who got us canceled at the Ambrosia. Her name is Jody M. Gastel, I think. And she started organizing people to go around and contact every single venue in the area to have us pre-canceled. So she wants to get all of the venues that host events in Vancouver Island and beyond to sign a contract, essentially agreeing that they won't hate or won't host groups like us, framing it, I'm sure, along the lines of like hate speech and hateful rhetoric and inclusivity and yada, yada, yada. So nobody in Canada will be able to speak about, we can barely speak about this in Canada as it is.
Right.
But these people are working to make it, literally impossible. So the rest of this Tessa woman's email says, the group that the Legion is ranting to also campaigns against COVID safety measures and vaccination programs, and advocates still against masking. Gasp! And our government's laws to keep people healthy and safe.
Are there still masking laws in Canada?
No.
Yeah, you bet I advocate against putting a soggy piece of cloth over your face.
She says, I'm
emailing to ask a piece of cloth over your face.
I know, what a joke. I'm emailing to ask the Legion to cancel tonight's rental. I guess she must have emailed while our event was happening, or maybe just before it, because we didn't release the venue until 3 hours before the event started. so they can cancel us, and proudly show compassion to and for trans people and their families and communities. They use the same fear-based rationale when speaking against vaccination programs. This person is fucking crazy. As they do when speaking against healthcare access and endocrinology support for minors. I've never heard that before.
Endocrinology
Endocrinology
support for
support for
minors.
minors. That's weird, eh? What
Yeah,
a
it
weird,
is weird.
weird framing.
Well, it makes sense that they would say that. I find it so interesting that the two issues are so intertwined, which is what I see in my community and all over North America. I don't know if that's also the case in Europe, but they are, and it makes sense. They are so allegiant to big pharma. They are weaponized big pharma. I was going to say bots, but I'm not allowed.
I think it's too late for us on the screen. I think
we wrecked it.
Too late a long time ago.
Yeah,
And then
those two issues are the same in their mind. It would be really fascinating to try to parse out logically of how that works for them.
I mean, anything big pharma sells them is a good thing, and anyone who says no is dangerous. That's what I'm getting here.
They tend to be very allegiant to psychiatry and the psychiatric drugs. They're very allegiant to the whole neurodivergent movement, and that they all have Adderall, amphetamine deficiency disorder. They all, many of them are on antidepressants. They really, really allegiant to that model too, of the medicalization of the human psyche. And then, of course, they're really into the cross-sex hormones, the hormonal birth control, and the vaccine. I guess it just all fits together. You're right. That's their communion. Big Pharma offers them their communion.
I'm just going to finish reading this email. I know it's very long. I'm sorry.
What's going on?
It's just, it's endless. Like, there's so many of these things out there that I've found and screenshotted. It's all libelous, and just so manipulative. And it's all the reversals really get to me too, because, fear-based, it's like, that's what you're doing. You're fear-mongering. And you guys are being extremist terrorists. Anyway, so she goes on to say, much of what Vancouver Island Speaks and Meghan Murphy publishes, I mean, we don't publish anything, so this is literally made up out of thin air, publishes and states is from non-academic and biased research and uses US data. This is just I don't even have any idea what she might be talking about.
Right.
Vancouver Island Speaks is just our little group of volunteers that organizes these events, so we don't publish anything. And I don't know what she's referring to that I publish.
Also, what's wrong with US data?
Yeah, I know. There's way more people in the US.
Yeah.
It's probably better data. I mean, if you want to use Canadian data, then what you'll find is that no transgender person has been killed in Canada ever. Like, there are not transgender hate crimes at all. You could probably find some in the US. Not in Canada. Transgender people are under, in no danger in Canada at all, if you look at Canadian data. The aim is to limit access to gender-affirming care for minors, not acknowledging that includes all minors, including the ones who are not trans. Okay, I don't know what that means. Other venues in Victoria have refused to book this group, understanding that the underlying momentum Vancouver Island Speaks hopes for is to limit the rights and health of vulnerable people, and specifically to try to stop access to life-saving healthcare for children and youth of all sexes and genders. The government of BC has a thorough website that focuses on healthcare and concerns for trans and intersex people. The group speaking tonight believes the information on the government's website is false. I don't think any of us have ever said that, but it's probably true. Maybe we have. Maybe they're talking about Soji or something like that. And maybe that is true. I'm sure the information is false. I just don't know specifically what information they're referring to, I suppose.
Right. How dare you not trust the government?
I know. Gasp. They believe the government's information is false. Like, the number of businesses that have canceled their booking. See, this is their activism. They're using their own harassment against us, right? They harass venues into canceling us, and then they say to other venues, look at all the venues that have canceled us because they're so hateful. Like, we forced all these venues to cancel because they were so scared of us, and now that's proof that they have to be canceled.
Yes.
The number of businesses who have canceled their booking with Vancouver Island Speaks once they discovered that the charisma, thank you, and half disclosures with Meghan Murphy. I told you guys I had a good personality.
They admit it.
Of Meghan Murphy and organizers masked their fundamental belief that trans people should not be allowed equal health care. No, we've never said that. Or to exist in Canada. Also never said that. No one in our group has ever said that. I don't think anyone in Canada has ever said that. By welcoming this rental instead of canceling their booking, Legion 292 stands to be associated with Vancouver Island Speaks and Meghan Murphy's ideology. It is my deep, deep hope that the Legion will refuse to allow this group to use their space tonight. Sincerely, Tressa. Oh, I think I said Tessa, but it's in fact Tressa Brodsky. I wish, and then she says, I wish I had thought to include a link to the merchandise Meghan Murphy sells, including her latest t-shirt. That she said boats, but I think she means boasts. 2 slurs in rainbow lettering. And she doesn't spell it. She says G star star and R star 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 across her chest while holding a mug printed with Team Turf. So you can find these t-shirts and that mug at fourthwall.com. If you go to my website, meganmurphy.ca, and click the shop tab, you can get your t-shirt and your Team Turf mug. Thank you for that, Tressa. So this is what she said, and then that was what Lori responded to, saying that she was distraught that we had spoken at the Legion, and I just could take a long, forever nap right now. But I can't, of course.
So depressing.
Yeah, so we're working on a response. And we are going to respond, and we're putting all the recordings up online soon. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting because these activists don't care if anyone means it. You know, like, they don't care that Lori isn't apologizing because she's actually distraught about our group or anything that was said, and because she was, you know, yelled at by her superiors and forced to apologize. That's not what they care about. They care that this happened, and now they'll be able to use this to say, you know, the Legion put out this statement, which they didn't, saying this about Vancouver Island Speaks and Meghan Murphy, so no one should ever rant to them again. And yeah, there was one, I mean, the libel is just endless. It's so overwhelming. There was one guy who is his name is Tom Rokeby, and he's the school board trustee at school district, at the Nanaimo Ladysmith School District on the island. And he shared this fake meme that said, statement from Royal Canadian Legion Branch 292 in Victoria regarding the Vancouver Island Speaks anti-trans event held at their venue, and then stuck Lori's email in there as though it was the statement. And he says, he posted this on Facebook along with the comment, statement from the Royal Canadian Legion in Victoria regarding the anti-trans hate group that fraudulently rented out their hall for one of their hate rallies last week.
Hate rally.
I mean, there's nothing fraudulent. Like, we didn't lie to anybody about what we were doing. And yeah, I mean, he's certainly guilty of libel. Lori didn't say that this was an anti-trans hate group rally. These are all their words. But, you know, these are people who work for the government, are responsible for local schools. You know, that Lynn person, I think, is at UVic, and it's just shameless, and I find it actually quite depressing how many people don't have any ethics, like that these people are so devoid of any kind of moral compass that they don't think that there's anything wrong with lying and scaring people and bullying people and trying to silence people who don't agree with them or who want to have conversations that are not in line with their religious views.
Isn't UVic like an early epicenter of some absolute insanity on this issue? Didn't they have the man who called himself a trans Hindu goddess who leading the women's studies department for a while, or the women's center? And he was a white guy in a sari with a bindi. And then I remember there was an adult baby guy at UVic who tried to get the nurse at UVic. He tried to force the nurses, the female nursing staff, to change his diapers because he has a freaking diaper fetish. I'm like, you know what? Like, stay in the closet, diaper fetishes. You should not be allowed in public. And he was claiming that was his human right to force female nursing staff to change his diaper. So that insanity has probably only deepened, right?
Yeah, well, and I believe that Martine Rothblatt funded their transgender studies chair at UVic.
I think it was the Pritzkers
that
funded, and it was.
I'm so sorry, I keep getting those mixed up.
Well, they're potato, but they had the first department of transgender studies. So the fetishistic men who say they're women had already taken over the women's studies department, and that wasn't enough. They also had to have a department of transgender studies, but they didn't give the women back their department. So now they have two departments.
I'm trying to find out more about this trans studies chair that was it Pritzker?
I thought it was JB Pritzker that not JB, Jennifer Pritzker. Yeah. It might have been Roth, but maybe they teamed up.
I mean, you're probably right, because I tend to get confused about these two, but I just want to confirm. Pritzker, UVic trans chair. Yes, you're right. Jennifer N. Pritzker supports the inaugural chair in UVic's faculty. Chair in transgender studies. Yeah, I mean, UVic is like a hotbed for trans activism. Victoria in general, and this is the only 1 million march for kids in Canada that got shut down was Victoria last year. I guess there's another one happening on Friday. I don't really know anything about it, to be honest, but I know that the activists are organizing against it. I'm not planning on going. Nobody's contacted me about it, and again, I don't really know any of the details, and I don't want to get murdered.
Right. Well, like Donald Trump, you might want to tone down your rhetoric and people will stop trying to kill you. So, we had another assassination attempt, and apparently that's the analysis on the left that if you would just stop provoking them.
Yeah. Oh, Bryony in the chat says Martine Rothblatt was a keynote speaker at a conference organized by the first chair in 2016 at UVic. So they've all got their little paws in there.
Yeah. So someone had asked if we had seen the Karla Marx clip. Did you see that? I
don't know who that is.
Oh, maybe we should discuss that next week. Karla Marx is a fetishistic man, an autogynephile who was berating a Canadian politician.
Oh no, I did see that. Sorry, I didn't know what the trans's name was, but Jennifer Johnstone.
Yes.
That
was one of the most disturbing, abusive interactions that I've seen. And I have no respect for anybody who is on the side of that perverted abuser. And how can people not see what's happening there?
Yeah, that video was awful. And I mean, I think anybody with a brain, and certainly anybody who's dealt with abusive narcissists before, would recognize this guy's behavior right away. Just for those watching to
Oh, it's so bad.
explain. Yeah, so Jennifer Johnson was an MLA that actually Premier Danielle Smith of Alberta, I think she kicked her out of the party during the 2023 election because the media found this video of her. They say they found a video of her comparing transgender kids to feces and food, but that's not what happened, of course, because they're never honest about these things.
No.
But I guess she was speaking at a forum last September about the public school system as compared to homeschooling. And in this recording, she says that she was talking about Alberta's high test scores. I haven't listened to the recording, so this is going to sound confusing. And of course, it sounds confusing because I'm sure they've taken this all out of context. But she says, it doesn't matter that we're in the top 3% of the world. Who cares if they got 89% in chemistry 30? Who cares that they're entering post-secondary if they're chemically castrated? So again, who knows what the context is, but obviously she's critical of transing kids.
Yes.
And which she should be. And Danielle Smith is the one that is trying to ban the transing of kids in Alberta. So the fact that she removed her from the party for that is really lame. Like, it makes me so angry that even, the conservatives, the few parties that we have in Canada who are speaking out against gender identity ideology and the transitioning kids are still afraid of being labeled as transphobic. Even the conservatives in BC are taking a real stand against men and women's sports and against the transing of kids in support of women-only spaces. And yet still, I think so many of them are afraid of being labeled transphobic. And it's like, they're gonna call you transphobic anyway.
Right.
Anybody who doesn't go along with this narrative and their demands 100% is going to be labeled transphobic. So get over it and just do what's right and stop catering to them in any way at all. Stop being afraid of them. That's what everybody has to do.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So she was kicked out, and I only saw the clip, and it sounded like she has to have meetings with so many people to redeem herself, and it's almost like a someone who got caught drunk driving has to have their card that says they went to so many AA meetings. It looks like a punishment like that. Okay, so she's trying to get back into the party.
Yeah, so Danielle's wanting to or thinking about bringing her back to the party, and this is what she's being put through. It's the United Conservative Party, is the Alberta party that we're talking about, that Danielle Smith is the leader of. And yeah, I guess in order to do that, she's being put through these struggle sessions
with a dude who calls himself Karl Marx. Karl Marx.
Yeah.
Oh, but you're crazy if you think these people are actually trying to bring communism to your country.
I mean, he has it on his Twitter profile. His bio says it's a private account, so I can't see his tweets, but he looks like a drag queen. His bio says trans femme communist drag comrade. She, her pronouns. She. Yeah, it's not hidden at all.
And he was talking, and he wasn't talking in that autogynephile voice. He was talking like an abusive man with a loud, commanding voice. He wasn't even using his like sneering autogynephile voice. He had his huge man hands with very long fingernails that looked like they could be weapons, and he was just berating this poor woman, saying literally, it's not enough that you say it, you haven't done the inner work that you believe it. You have to believe I'm a woman.
He said, yeah. So he asks her, does he say, do you believe that trans women are women, or like are trans women women? I think he says, do you believe that trans women are women? And she says, she stops and pauses and says, I'm going to have to think about that. I've never been asked that before, which I think is great that she didn't just knee jerk and say yes. She was like, I'm going to think carefully about my answer to this. I mean, if it were me, I would have been like, nope. But, you know, not everybody is as prepared as we are. And she's trying to get back into the party.
Right,
so.
right. Where we're like, fuck that party.
But at least she didn't lie.
Part of the party that's making me like go through a re-education camp. That is not the kind of party I want to go to.
And the party, the one party that's critical of transgenderism.
Oh,
also.
so
like,
sad.
Come on.
He said, are you willing to say on the record that you believe trans women are women? I think that was it. And she said, I'd never been asked that before. And yeah, and then he just went off.
Yeah, he's like, well, that's good enough for me. Bye. Like, and he kept pressuring her for a while. Yeah, lecturing her and being like, are you going to say it? Say it, say it, say it. And when she wouldn't say it, he left the call.
And she said, we don't have to agree, and I can still care about you as a human being. And he's like, no, not if you don't acknowledge my very existence.
Yeah, can we disagree and still respect one another, is what she said.
Like,
nope.
Yeah.
Of course not. That's not the point. The point isn't respect. That they claim that they want respect is a lie.
They will settle for nothing but total capitulation. That is what they want. They want women to grovel. They want women to be demeaned. They want us to, oh, look at her. Is she still stinky?
She smells like soap, I think.
Okay, good. That's an improvement.
Stinky baby.
Yeah, I want everyone to watch that. But the sad thing is, I know, because I've been presenting people with similar evidence of abusive men, violent men, convicted rapists, convicted pedophiles behaving like this since I first started yelling about this issue, over 10 years ago. And still, it doesn't matter. The left is so brainwashed and hoodwinked that they will still be on the side of that horrendous man who was verbally abusing a woman who's just trying to get back into a political party.
I mean, I wonder what percentage of people are just scared of the guy. I mean, because what I thought the video proved, I saw somebody tweeting, that they deleted the tweet or they blocked me or something like that, so I can't see the tweet anymore. I didn't get a screenshot, unfortunately, but I had shared it last night, and then I think they blocked me. It was critical of Jennifer sort of refusing to go along with this. And this proves what we're dealing with or something like that. But what it does prove is that this is what people are afraid of, and this is why they're going along with it. Like, to me, it proves that, like, nobody believes that trans women are women. But they are afraid of these men like Carla Marks, who will bully them and berate them and then cancel them and try to destroy them if they don't go along. That's why people are saying trans women are women. And, some people are saying it to seem nice and to get applause or whatever. But at this point, I think early on, maybe there were lots of people who really did believe trans women are women because they thought we were talking about gender or a feeling on the inside, or they thought we were talking about intersex. And I think now this conversation has been happening for long enough that people know that actually what we're talking about is men who are identifying or wanting to identify as women. And so I don't think that most people actually believe that trans women are women. And I think that they're just, anybody who says so is lying and afraid.
Do you think, though, the really brainwashed cultists, I think that they do believe it, because I'm thinking of, what does that keep happening? It's like they just have Something keeps turning off my camera. I'm not touching anything, and it just keeps turning off.
It's probably like a cord that is moving and disconnects or something like that. It's probably like a bad cord or an old cord. I also have cords like that, like the connection.
It's hackers. I'm all freaked out after that Israeli pager attack. I'm like, what else can they do to my electronics? That was anyway.
Those pagers. But the pagers were already like planted with, there were bombs in the pagers that they gave to Hamas or something like that. Is that what happened?
I know. I was thinking that, because I'm so concerned about phone addiction in myself and everybody else. I thought, well, maybe it'd be a good public health policy of or public health project if in the United States, once a week, 5 cell phones explode randomly. Maybe that would get us.
That makes you a terrorist, Mary Lou.
Does that? Oh no! Now we're going to get memory hold again. Yeah. So back to, do some people?
I don't think you can advocate terrorism on YouTube.
No, I can't. I was just a thought experiment. It's just a
philosophical question.
So I'm thinking about like the true believers, like the trans true believers, like the ACLU. Oh, Hezbollah. Sorry, it happened in Lebanon. Thanks for the correction. So I'm thinking about that ACLU case in Indiana this week. Did you see that? That this man who calls himself a woman. Well, when you say, like, do people really believe it? And I'm thinking about the lawyers at the ACLU who argued on behalf of this man. Here, let me find it. His name is, he calls himself Autumn Richardson, and he's in jail for 55 years for murdering his 11-month-old stepdaughter. And in jail, he discovered that he's a woman, and the ACLU sued the state of Indiana for denying him life-saving medical care, saying that they have to provide for him, quote, a vagina, followed by breast implants, a brow lift, a brow reduction, a tummy tuck, a gluteal implants, that's a Brazilian butt lift, a uterus transplant, hair removal, and wigs.
Wow.
And they won their case.
Well, it's medical. I think it's like necessary medical procedures to save his life, right?
That's why he needs a uterus transplant, which is literally in the legal document.
Yeah, so. And wigs.
He'll die if he doesn't get a Brazilian butt lift. And
that's what they're saying. I mean, I'm obviously joking, but that's what they're saying when, all these trans activists who wrote on those letters to the Legion, when they're saying, they're advocating against necessary medical treatment. The medical treatment is these experimental surgeries and cosmetic surgeries and hormone treatments.
These lawyers working for the ACLU must actually believe this, right? Or they wouldn't pour their energy into something so disgusting. This is a man who murdered a baby. To me, I'm like, he deserves nothing. I'm not really pro death penalty, but like, I'm fine with him being locked up for 55 years. He doesn't deserve anything beyond basic medical care, but they must believe it. And I mean, the ACLU is so captured. We know multiple women who've lost their jobs there. Kara Dansky, Maya Dillard-Smith, like really brilliant women. We also know the ACLU is not doing anything to counter all the censorship happening in the United States. They did not file even an amicus brief in the Murthy versus Missouri, where the Biden administration argued that the executive branch of the U.S. federal government had the right to manage the cognitive infrastructure of the country and had to censor us because of that. So they've lost the plot completely of what they used to be about. But do you think those lawyers arguing that this guy should get a uterus transplant and a fake vagina and a BBL, they must really believe he's a woman, right? What are they thinking, Meghan? What are they thinking?
Well,
what's wrong with them?
Yeah, I mean, they might. I think maybe they've convinced themselves of the idea that there is such a thing as like a female soul. That I don't know, but I think that it must be that they think that being a woman isn't really about chromosomes, obviously, but that you can actually craft a woman via cosmetic surgery and hormones. Like if the parts are woman parts and that counts as a woman, and maybe if this person behaves like a woman, or they, you know, they feel so strongly that they're a woman on the inside, then that's valid. And I mean, what did they I don't know, it's really hard for me to put myself in the brains of these people because it's so irrational.
Right.
But yeah, you're right that some of them have probably convinced themselves of the concept. I just it's hard for me to believe that. I sort of think that it's more, for most anyway, that they think that if they don't validate these people's identities, that that's really mean and dangerous, to the point that they do have to validate these identities, and ergo they have to say trans women are women, because otherwise this will send them into a spiral of dangerous mental health crises.
People are saying you could believe anything when there's a paycheck attached, and that lawyers don't believe everything they argue for. And I hear that, but the ACLU is not a really high-paying legal gig. It's not. I don't believe you work for the ACLU for the paycheck.
No, I guess not. I don't believe things just because I'm getting paid to believe them. I think that big pharma execs and, employees who sold people fentanyl knew that they were lying and sold it anyway, right?
Right, absolutely. And the lawyers and actuarians for Merck who literally cracked the data, they knew that their drug Vioxx was going to kill many, many people with heart attacks. And they sat and did the numbers of how much they would lose in the lawsuits versus how much they would make from selling the drug to everyone. And they decided it was still worth it to kill all these people because they'd make all this money and it would be worth the inevitable lawsuits. Those lawyers are sociopaths. Up to this point, maybe I'm changing my mind right now, just haven't believed that lawyers who work for the ACLU are the same as corporate lawyers in terms of sociopathy.
Yeah. I just want to point out that because Bill Wetcott is in our chat, and he says, the lawyers in my inquisition at the British Columbia Human Rights Commission definitely acted like they believed Ronan, and then he puts it in parentheses, fake name Morgan Auger, who I'm sure you're familiar with, was a woman. I was ordered to address him with female or gender-neutral pronouns on pain that I would be fined $55,000 for calling him a man. Yeah, so Bill Wetcott was put through one of those human rights tribunals that they keep threatening us all with. And he was
trial.
Yeah, and he was ordered to pay $55,000 to Morgan Auger, who stalked me around Vancouver one day. And, I think Wetcott had printed flyers that described Auger as a man, among other things. And, the Human Rights Tribunal people in Canada and BC, obviously, if you can believe it, are fully captured by this ideology.
Yeah. I think that they believe
maybe too stupid that they believe it. Maybe they are that stupid. There's a lot more stupid people in this world than I think is polite to admit to.
People believe all kinds of insane things. And I always go back to being raised Catholic, and in my first communion, I just remember being so distressed that I didn't actually believe it. I didn't really believe the priest was turning the bread into Jesus, and I couldn't make myself believe it. And I finally told my friend Stacy that I didn't believe it. And she said, you can't say that. You can't tell anybody that. I won't tell anyone you said it, but don't say it again. And then I grow up and I read Mary Daly, who was a Catholic nun and then became a radical feminist. And in her book, Pure Lust, she talks about the compelled insanity of forcing people to believe in the Eucharistic miracle, to believe that the priest really is turning the bread into Jesus. And she says that compulsion to believe that and say you believe that for centuries in history opened up the space for transgenderism. She made that connection in like 1983 in her book Pure Lust, that if you can you can compel people to believe the priest is turning the bread into Jesus, then it's not that hard to compel them to believe that the scientists are turning the man into a woman, or that the man really was a woman because he had a female soul. So it does come down to a religiosity and to a cultish core belief.
Mm-hmm.
So distressing.
Seeking and Finding says you don't know much about lawyers if you assume they need to believe anything they fight for, which of course is true. I mean, lawyers are making arguments that have nothing to do with their beliefs, which is why it's annoying when people blame lawyers who defend rapists and murderers of, somehow supporting the rapists and murderers as opposed to simply doing their job. Of course, they can choose who to represent and not to represent, but that's not really how lawyers work. But, if you think about somebody like Barbara Finley, who's made her entire career since the 80s about pushing transgenderism in Canada. She's the one who represented Kimberly Nixon against Vancouver Rape Relief. She's the one who started this organization called Lawyers Against Transphobia, which I think is working on, again, criminalizing people who don't use preferred pronouns and who challenge transgender ideology. I don't know why. She's a woman. She's a lesbian. She's an old lesbian. And she's made this her career. I'm sure it's been very financially lucrative for her.
Yeah, I'm
she's
sure.
like the one, she's always on the CBC. She's the expert in transgenderism and hate speech and so on and so forth, trans rights in Canada. But why, does she believe it? Does she believe that trans women are really women? I've never been able to figure out or understand why she's so dedicated to this particular issue as a lesbian. Like maybe she has a relative or something like that. Or maybe it's just a money thing.
It might be a money thing. It's probably, and people, I do think a certain percentage of people are true believers. I think that a growing a number of people in the general population are getting really fed up with this issue and really angry about this issue, but there's no unifying, there's no money behind that, as you know. There's no, this is it's being the critiques of it are being suppressed. There's not a large organization really fighting in a unified way to stop this. But I still think there's a core of people on the left and in this movement who really, like cult members, do believe it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think there's a variety of things happening here in terms of the people who say trans women are women. Some people are lying. Some people think it's a nice thing to do. Some people do it for their own benefit, for virtue signaling purposes. And some people are stupid and some people think that it's about intersex. I shouldn't say stupid, because a lot of people, intersex is confusing for anybody who doesn't know a lot about that. I don't even know a lot about that, but I've been forced to understand it as best that I can because transgenderism is conflated with intersex so often. So I have to respond to those arguments, but it is very confusing, like what intersex means. I mean, it doesn't really mean anything. Intersex conditions, DSD conditions is the term now, I guess, right? So I think a lot of people think that, or at least did, people are better educated now. I think people are becoming better educated because of transgenderism being pushed on people in this way, right? The whole controversy around Imran Khalif boxing and, whether or not he's trans or intersex and what that means. I think people learned a lot from that controversy, which is, thing in some ways. So there's people who confuse it with intersex, and then you're right, there's probably a faction of people who believe in a female soul, believe that we're just talking about gender, and so that you can identify in and out of being a woman or a man, because that's not real. It's a social construct, right? Like that's a big thing too, right? People are confusing sex and gender.
Oh, that's absolutely true. Yeah. And then I'm meeting a growing number of people who of like no longer canceling me for being a transphobe, but need me to know they disagree with me on transgenderism and they wish I could just be nice because of their nice trans relatives or the nice trans kid in their class or whatever. But then when I talk to them and I'll say, well, the state of New Mexico just passed a law that if you take state funds, you can only provide affirming care and you have to participate in pediatric gender transitions. And they'll say, oh, well, I agree with you on that. I don't think children should be doing this. And then I'll mention sports. They'll say, oh, I agree with that. I don't think men should be in women's sports. And I'll mention the convicted rapists deciding they're trans after their conviction and being transferred to women's prisons. They just discovered they were a woman while they were locked up for raping a bunch of women and getting transferred to a women's prison. They'll say, oh, I agree with you on that. That shouldn't be happening. But still, trans rights are human rights and trans women are women. So that's very frustrating. But there is a bit of like cracking happening on some of those issues.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw those videos of Jonathan / Jessica Yaniv hurling racial slurs at Drea of Rebel News. He's been harassing and threatening her for some time now, threatening her kids. And there was a video of him calling her the N-word over and over and over and over again. He's obviously the one who takes credit anyway for having me banned from Twitter for referring to him as he. I don't know if that's true. It was specifically in relation to me referring to him as he. I don't know if he specifically had me banned from Twitter, but she pointed out, I messaged her and I was like, why is this guy not in jail yet?
Yeah.
She was like, well, he probably will be, but he'll also probably end up in a women's prison. And I was like, oh my God, yes, they're probably right.
Right. And it will be a human rights violation for the state not to pay for him to get his balls waxed, not to force women to wax his balls in prison, right? He's going to need that in prison.
Yeah, he's going to insist that it be women who, pat him down, which will be a turn on for him. I mean, that's what he was trying to get out of the estheticians, for them to touch his genitals, forced to touch his genitals, and then drag them all to the Human Rights Tribunal because they declined.
That was so insane watching this guy who's an epitome of everything we're talking about, of how predatory men are going to use this to prey on women. And here he is forcing mostly immigrant women, working class women to touch his genitals. And I was talking to a friend who said that her friend, who's a lefty lawyer, a male in California, she had used that example to him of like, this is how women are being harmed by these kind of legislations. And he was like, well, I think it's not that simple. And what if there were a bridal party and that included a trans woman and they were all going as part of the bachelorette party to get their genitals waxed? And you wouldn't want this nice trans woman to be excluded from the genital waxing party, which, like, that's how addled liberals' brains are about this man who's clearly a predator and is abusing women publicly, gets turned into some hypothetical middle-class bridal group that includes a nice trans woman who can't get her testicles waxed with the rest of the waxing party. It's crazy. Do women go in groups to get their genitals waxed together? Like, is that? I'm so far out of the loop. I don't think so. I think that's a private thing you do on your.
I'm anti-waxing.
Well, me too.
But no, I wouldn't have like why. There would be no point in doing that because it's not like you guys could all be in the room together while people are getting waxed. It needs to be a sanitary space. And it's not like fun. So,
I know exactly.
Like, and you're not really supposed to be drinking when you're doing those things because then you'll bleed more, right?
Yeah. And it's not a social event. And there's no reason to know
I was saying drinking because I was sorry. I'm
Yeah,
like, I know you didn't say
it's
anything
a
about drinking because I
bachelorette
was picturing like have
a
champagne and get
bachelorette party.
waxed.
Let's all get waxed at the bachelorette party. This is a porn addicted man's idea of what's happening at a bridal shower to begin with. That this man would even say that as sort of a admission that he's watching too much porn and he has all these bizarre fantasies about women or what women are doing at a bachelorette party.
Oh yeah, I mean, men who watch too much porn give themselves away constantly in terms of what they think that women think and do, and like they think that women are masturbating all the time.
At the bachelorette party together.
Yeah, it's like, no, that's what you guys do. You guys go and
Right.
sit in strip clubs together and get hard with a bunch of other dudes.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
homos.
Yeah.
Like you guys are actually like sort of being masturbated by strippers in front of each other. So
Exactly.
that's a man thing, not a woman
Yeah.
thing. We
No.
don't do that.
Oh, it's just such a frustrating topic. I just can't even believe we're still in this insanity, that nothing's changed. You're still getting your venues canceled. Like nothing's changed since I first started hearing about this in 2011 or 2012 when this was happening to the Deep Green Resistance women, right? Like it just keeps happening over and over and over again.
Well, and I
Yeah.
had thought that things had changed. I thought, oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh, this conversation is opening up. People in Canada are pushing back, which they are. People in
Yeah.
Canada are pushing back way more than before. We had these events that went well, and we had some support in a couple places from the venues, which went away or was secret. But then, it's getting worse. Like, it's
Yeah.
getting worse. It's getting harder and harder for us to find a venue to hold these events in Canada. Everyone is scared to do it. And, we're at the point where next time we want to do an event, like, are we going to have to do it at somebody's house, on somebody's
Yeah.
private property? Which is fine, we're not gonna
Right.
stop doing it. We are gonna keep doing it. I saw in one of the in one of the Facebook groups, it's funny because in one of their organizing groups, I have a bunch of screenshots that were leaked to me. And one of the women in there is this woman that I vaguely know from the past, Laura Bushakin, who again, this is a part of the reason that I think that a lot of these people are dum-dums, because some of them I know and they are real dum-dums. But these are the gung-ho progressives who were gung-ho about masking and all the COVID protocols and Ukraine and
Mm-hmm.
Palestine, free Palestine,
Yeah.
and all of the knee-jerk lefty positions, transgenderism. So I know that they're not really thinking people, but in any case, I think it was her that suggested, one of them suggested in any case, I mean, I'm pretty sure it was her, I wonder what would happen if we called the RCMP on them during one of their events. And I was like, this is a great idea. And I literally hope you do that. I hope that next time we do an event, somebody calls the RCMP and sends them to our event because we're doing hate speech and they need to arrest us, because I think it would be hilarious, because the RCMP would show up and be like, what? Like, why are we here? There's no hate speech. There's nothing hateful. Everyone at the events is great. Like, they're really such nice events. Like, they're very warm, inspiring, like happy, loving events. People there are wonderful. And we've been doing this sort of after party cocktail hour for people who buy the after party cocktail hour ticket, so people can hang around and have snacks and have drinks. And I just want to apologize to everyone who was there, because I don't think we had enough snacks. I didn't even see it, but it seemed like the snacks went really fast, and I didn't even know how big the snack trays were. And I had a lot of anxiety leading up to the event about the snack trays, but they were provided. I mean, we had to pay for them, but they were provided by the Legion. And so they would say, this serves 30 people. And I was like, okay, well, that should be enough. I think we actually ended up having 40 or 45 or maybe more than that at the after party. And so I feel bad that people probably didn't get that many snacks. But anyway, it's not the most important part, I suppose.
Well, that's the real crime that happened.
There wasn't enough cheese, I think. I should have, like, as a cheese fanatic, I should have, of course, been like, yeah, we should have X more cheese and salami. So next time we'll try to think about that. But, like, people are like chatting and hugging and meeting each other. I met Barry Neufeld came, he was a BC school trustee who was famously accused of transphobia and
Mm.
canceled. And most recently, I believe he's been ordered to pay a stripper who is, they describe her as a political rival. There was two people running for the Chilliwack School Board, him and this woman, Dr. Karen Bondar, and I think he called her like pole dancer or a stripper, and so now he has to pay her $45,000 for defamation. And I was like, okay, I always thought the defamation cases were really hard to win, but if that's like, maybe I can get $45,000. Imagine if I got $45,000 from everybody who had defamed me in
Oh
Canada.
my
I would
gosh.
be so
You'd
rich.
be really wealthy.
I should actually do this. I should.
Was she actually
This
working
would
as a
solve
stripper?
all of my money problems.
Like, was she a stripper?
I think so. I mean, let me
Is that
try
hate
to.
speech now to call someone a stripper?
He was. Okay, so he was referencing. I don't know. I'll need to look for. I mean, I might get sued for defamation now too. I don't really know. I was under the impression that she had done some kind of pole dancing or something, but I guess it was that she'd made a video where she was parodying Miley Cyrus's "Wrecking Ball" song, and she's like naked basically in that video, which featured a brief shot of Bondar nude from the back, wearing only a pair of boots. So I don't see why it's defamatory to call her a striptease artist or a pole dancer.
Well, especially by the left thinks
she
that
took
that's
off
noble.
the clothes.
That's noble work. Like, that's what we should be encouraging all of our daughters to want to do. Sex work is work. It's noble work. And why would it be any more offensive than if she posted something of putting a Band-Aid on a kid, calling her a doctor or a nurse?
That's a really good point. Like, why is it defamation if being a stripper is just a job like any other, and like you say, as respectable as being a teacher or a doctor or a pilot or a firefighter or anything like that? I mean, I feel like she's defaming strippers by taking that as an insult.
Right. They should all sue her.
Oh yeah, of course we do have to go. It's been 2 hours. This has been so much fun.
Yay.
I was sort of being sarcastic. I mean, it was fun. It was started off stressful, but it's always better to talk about these things. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming, everyone. Thank you, Mary Lou. If you would like to donate to Vancouver Island Speaks, we want to continue doing more events. It's going to be a huge struggle. It's always a huge struggle. It's very stressful. We are volunteers. Oh, Mary Lou.
Why?
It's just a few of us putting these things together. I always sort of refused to organize events that I was speaking at because I think that's too stressful and too much work. And because I'm not an organizer, I don't really know how. That's not my area of expertise, but nobody else was doing it. And I was like, okay, well, if I want these events to happen in BC, then I have to do it myself. And I had found some women on the island who were into organizing and who are tough and awesome. So it's just us doing it, and we don't have any money. We don't have any money. We're poor. Help us. We're poor. Like we pay for everything mostly through ticket sales, so that usually sort of barely covers everything that we're trying to cover: venues, flights, hotels. We brought in Mia and Linda this time, of course, and snacks and all of that stuff. And we'll get private donations sometimes from people. That's extremely helpful. Our last event, we did manage to get some funding through the Democracy Fund, which was super helpful. And honestly, we wouldn't have been able to do that event without that funding. I think we want to try to do Vancouver next year. I think Vancouver really needs something. It just seems like nothing, like everything. We did those few events in Vancouver. We did, I think, 4 events in Vancouver before COVID, and then everything stopped. And then after that, nothing happened there. So again, it's like, okay, well, if nobody else is going to do it, then we're going to do it. And Vancouver is a lot more expensive, so we're going to need a lot more money if we want to do that. So I'm putting this link in the live chat, but go to vancouverislandspeaks.org. You can donate there. We would super appreciate it. Matt Walsh has not yet given us any of his money. I guess he paid, what did he pay Robin DiAngelo for an interview? Like $50,000 or something?
$15,000.
Can you believe it? You're not supposed to pay
stupid.
people for interviews. That's like a journalistic no-no.
Yeah.
People do sometimes, of course, but like, I've done so much media. I've never, have I ever been paid? It's not a thing. Like you would never ask to be paid unless you were a grifter or you didn't know any better. I'm sure celebrities get paid for media interviews, but if you're just a person who's like, I mean, she already has so much money so for her to ask for money is totally grifty and unethical and really disgusting. Like she has like a tenure track position and she's made so much money off of her grift and all her books and stuff. And she asked for $15,000 to interview on like if you're an academic or you're a journalist or like you're an author or an expert, like a scientist, you do interviews for free because it's, promotion or because you're trying to get your word out there and your views out there. You want people to understand what's going on. I was just blown away. Not only that she was paid and she asked for money, but that much money. So anyway, Matt Walsh has not given us any money for our events. Maybe he will, because I know that he's worried about where all the women are on this issue.
I know he's very concerned about it. Where are they? Why have no women spoken out about this issue ever?
Well, it's weird. I don't know where they
it's
all
weird, especially the feminists.
So if people want to donate, great. Again, if they want to get the shirt that Tressa mentioned in her Facebook post, my hateful shirt and turf mug, among other cool merch products, you can go to meganmurphy.ca and click the shop tab, which will take you to my shop at fourthwall.com. I feel like there's probably other things that we can mention, but I don't know what they are. I'm going to be putting the video from the event up on my YouTube channel soon, so keep an eye there. Mary Lou is at enchantedfamilymedicine.com and on Twitter at X on at Singleton underscore ML, or is it ML underscore Singleton? I
never can remember. Let me look right now. I don't know.
And she's on Substack at Mary Lou Singleton.
ML underscore Singleton.
Okay.
You had it right.
Great. Is there anything else you would like to mention? I'm
speaking at the WDI conference in Atlanta this weekend.
Is that public? Can anybody go?
I think the tickets are closed now, though it's women only, and you might be able to petition the organizers to see if there are still tickets left. So that'll be exciting to hang out with all the TERFs in Atlanta.
Cool. Oh, I have something I need to mention. Duh. I'm speaking on Tuesday in Victoria again. So on September 24th with Dr. Charles Hoff and Maxime Bernier. And you can get tickets. I'm going to post the link in the live chat again, but it's We Unify that's putting it on. So I have the link in the show notes on YouTube down below, weunify.ticketspice.com. So anyone who missed me in Victoria on Saturday can come see me at this event. And it won't be canceled, I promise, but they're also not releasing the venue, I think, until 24 hours before. Because we're not allowed to speak in Canada. Like Vancouver, Canada, is the best place to live in the world, and everyone is really nice and inclusive and kind, so long as you don't say anything.
Great.
The best. It's the best. I'm going back to Mexico soon, and I couldn't be more excited.
Yay.
I've been here for so long.
You have been there a long time.
That feels way longer than it's actually been. Okay. It's late for you. It's late for everyone. We'll let you go. Thanks for tuning in. Join us next Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, and have a great night.
Great night, everybody.